let's examine the property of a standing wave. So, and the case we have shown previously is the special case of complete standing wave, so that you will observe zero voltage and zero currents and zero power on the voltage, current, and power distribution on the transmission line. And the complete standing wave is the result of positive and negative going waves of equal amplitudes. So the requirement to forming complete standing wave is that the termination of the transmission line must absorb no energy, so that all the incident power get reflected. So what happens if the load is some kind of resistively low, it absorbs part of the energy and reflects part of that, then you will form the so-called, then you won't be able to form the complete standing wave. So that would be a partial standing wave. Now, if you examine the voltage and current variation within the voltage pattern and the current pattern, we can try to calculate the power flow within the transmission line with complete standing wave pattern. So in the red box is the instantaneous power on the transmission line. Instantaneous power. So it's the product of voltage and current. Then but we are more interested about the so-called average power propagates on the transmission line. So as you can see here, the error sign indicates that this is a time average result of the power flow on the line. So you should perform the time domain integration of one period. So T starts from T equal to 0 to capital T and divided by the time considered in this integration. And as you can see here, if you replace the capital T, that is the period of the signal, it can be replaced with omega over 2 pi. Then the time domain integration will be reduced to this. From integrating from 0 to 2 pi over omega. And the signal is sine of 2 times omega t plus theta. So with a period, with a integration of period, this thing will reduce to 0, which means the average power flow on a line with completely standing wave pattern is 0 everywhere. Every point on the transmission line with complete standing wave will deliver no power. But you still have energy reside within the transmission line sections, because you see the time varying voltage signal and time varying current signal. So you can view the transmission line with complete standing wave pattern as a bunch of battery. Each battery stores some energy, but they do not deliver. They do not have the energy propagates along the line. So the transmission line with the transmission line with completely standing wave are simply using the transmission line as energy storage. And note that in this slide, we see the absolute value of the voltage and currents are 90 degrees out of phase. So what happens is you know that for a transmission line with complete standing wave, you know that there are some energy on the transmission line, but they do not deliver. So the energy does not propagate to the right or to the left. So what happens? Well, you can think of the transmission line as a series of packets. Then the energy is transformed from voltage into current then into voltage. Because if you look at the voltage pattern and the current pattern, you will find that as the time progress, for example, at this very time instant, it's voltage 0 and maximum current. Then what happens next? As the time evolves, the currents become smaller and smaller. The voltage becomes larger and larger. So at that specific point, in this time period, the energy is transformed from current-based energy into voltage-based energy. To be more precise, it's transformed from magnetic field into electrical field. Then the energy stored in terms of electrical field will becomes energy stored in terms of magnetic field. And this process will continue alternatively as long as there is no loss on the transmission line. So for a more realistic case, if there are loss on the transmission line, if the transmission line is a little bit lossy, then we will see the energy is still converted between electrical field and magnetic field energy, but the total amount of energy will decrease as the time progresses due to the loss on the transmission line. Okay? So that's happens. So if you in this slide, well, the energy stored on the transmission line can be measured using an AC voltmeter or an AC ammeter. You can measure the voltage and currents on the transmission line. So if you move your meters along the line with standing wave pattern, you will observe this kind of behavior. So be careful about this plot. This curves marks the maximum voltage observed on the transmission line for a certain amount of time. So it's simply like a max and hold with your oscilloscope or your multimeter, things like that. 所以这张图里头那个线是你在那个位置上面所观察到的最大电压。那假如你把一根探针接到不同的位置，然后你用那个示波器 oscilloscope 去观察的话，你看到的是 time domain 的电压变化。所以你只要探针摆在这里，你看到它的电压变动振幅比较大。 这里头就稍微小一点，这里嘞等于0，好，所以假如你这个有这个美国时间哈，把那个探针沿着这个路这样慢慢走的话，你就可以画出这样子的图来，好吗？啊，所以这个图是你把一个电压探针哈，沿着传输线啊去，然后接示波器去做的量测啊，所以虽然它是驻波，但是所以每个位置上面你看到的其实都是10遍的 sinusoidal 讯号 ，sinusoidal signal， 只是它的那个电压值，最大电压值是不一样的哈。最大电压值就受到那个 standing wave pattern 的控制，受到那个影响。Okay, and so we can observe that the voltage maximum and voltage node and current nodes appears successively with a separation distance of half wavelengths. So by knowing that the voltage 0 and current 0 on a transmission line with complete standing wave, we can use the measurement result to find the wavelength of the signal, because the separation distance between adjacent nodes is half a wavelength, 因为它的间隔是驻波的那个节点间隔是半波长，所以把那个驻波的节点间隔找出来，你就知道这一个讯号的波长，也就是2倍。那假如你知道这一个传输线的波数，那你就可以用这一个关系，把波数除上波长，你就得到讯号的频率，你就得到讯号的频率。What next? Okay, and we already know that there is no power flow across a voltage node or a current node on a transmission line with standing wave pattern, because at the node position, the energy, the total energy, which is a product of line voltage and line current, stays 0 all the time. So there is no power flow, there's no power can get through the voltage node and the current node. So the transmission line with complete standing wave pattern simply can be viewed as the energy, the total energy is locked up in sections of quarter wavelengths long, and they are stored in the transmission line in terms of electric and magnetic field. So the voltage stands for the amount of electrical field, and the current stands for the amount of magnetic field. And the energy stored within the transmission line must continuous alternating between electrical field form and magnetic field form, so that they can last on the transmission line. So therefore, the sections, the quarter wavelength section on the transmission line can be viewed as a resonator, or a resonating cavity or something like that. So what is a resonator? 什么是共振器？共振器是一个很有趣的东西它可以达到2个目的。So if completely standing wave happens on a transmission line, then you can remove a section of the transmission line and still observe the energy stored in those cavities, in those resonant cavities, without disturbing them, as long as you can abide the boundary condition of the line. For example, the boundary condition at the very right is it's a voltage minimum. And a quarter wavelength away from it is you have a boundary condition of zero current. So if you use a scissor to cut the last section of the transmission line over here and have it remain as an open on both sides, then the energy will still appear in the transmission line, and the resonant behavior, resonant phenomena will persist on the two sections. And in other words, you can cut off this section by doing what? By shorting the transmission line at this specific point. So it will require a short termination, open termination, short termination. And then you can have the resonance behavior appear on the transmission line without disturbing it. But in reality, it may last for a few nanoseconds or at the most microseconds if you have a low frequency signal. It won't last forever unless we can get to the Pandora planet and obtain the element of the Unobtainium. Okay, if we can use lossless, if we can make the so-called lossless transmission line, then you are supposed to have this kind of phenomenon. All right. So a structure, a component with boundary condition can form the so-called natural oscillation. So let's examine what happens with natural oscillation. Does anyone have never played with any musical instrument before? I'm not meaning that you are a master of a specific instrument. I mean, have you ever played with guitar, piano, anything? No. So all the musical instruments are based on resonance. Are based on resonance, and they have different kinds of resonant modes appear on the musical instrument. So let's examine the first kind of resonance. For this kind of resonance, you have a short termination on one side and open termination on the other side. Okay, so the fundamental mode that can appear on this kind of structure is referred as quarter wavelength mode. Let me give you an example. 忘了这个东西的英文叫什么？音叉啦，有没有看过？长这个样子哦。拿那个，然后你再手握在这边哦，然后往你隔壁同学脑袋上敲下去哦，那就会发出声音。好，那它其实就是一个1/4波长的结构。那你音叉的一个特别的特点在于哪里？它在于它只有 fundamental mode， 啊，因为音叉你只要有看过的话，它那根金属是很粗的，它故意做那么粗，所以那根金属被敲的时候它会晃，但是它也就只能这样子晃而已。那一根金属因为粗，所以是直直的晃，啊，那所以音叉发出来声音很难听，因为它是 single tone。另外一个常见的 single tone 就是你们那个电脑的喇叭，有没有？电脑在开机关机的时候，有时候在叫一下嘛，对不对？我们小时候那个电脑的那个合成音乐都是靠着玩 game 的音乐都是靠着那个小喇叭在发声的，都其实蛮难听的那个电脑在那个开机的时候，哔那一声它其实是一个 single tone 就只有一个特定频率的闪灵收益头，没有所谓的高次谐波那我们在用的所有的音拿来可以做乐器的那个，拿来可以做发出音乐的乐器其实都是有所谓的这个叫什么 higher order tone， 都有高次谐波所以你光听声音就知道这是竖笛还是单簧还是双簧管是竖笛还是小喇叭，因为它们的高次谐波不一样你光听声音就知道是你同学在叫你还是你老母在叫你嘛，对不对因为人发出来的声音的高次谐波也不一样但音叉比较特别，它就是正弦波那你只要去看那个音叉的结构的话，它事实上就是一个我一直走错方向。所以你看音叉的结构的话，它就是一个一边开路一边短路嘛，对不对？一边开路一边短路。那另外一个，所以它的还有没有什么东西是一边开路一边短路的？因为倒比较少，我想到的大部分都是双端开路和双端短路。好了，但假如那个但是靠这样子的边界条件according to the boundary conditions that is one side is shorted and the other side is open, the next resonant mode that you can find with this kind of structure is the 3/4 wavelengths, 3/4 wavelengths resonance. Okay, so the resonant frequency will be 3 times as high as the fundamental mode frequency. And then you will have the fifth mode. The size of the resonator will be about fifth of a quarter wavelengths. And so let's check out some other musical instruments. So here is example. This is an example of a trumpet. Okay. 我高中的时候是吹萨克斯风的啦那我们叫木管乐器虽然萨克斯风看起来规矩是金的但老实讲我们是木管乐器啦那相对于木管乐器就是铜管乐器嘛OK， 那铜管乐器的话其实他们蛮厉害的为什么？因为他们只有3个按键，所以大概只有4种还是5种的排列组合嘛，但是你可以吹那么多音所以铜管乐器他们在发出不同的音的时候，包含全音阶跟半音阶他们其实靠的是嘴型靠嘴型还有送气的快慢所以他们要吹得快其实是蛮不容易的事情。那所以之所以要发出那么一个完整的大的音阶的话，所以铜管乐器它其实靠的是 fundamental mode 跟一堆的 higher order mode 然后你要让你发出的音是集中在特定的 higher order mode 所以我们这边举一个例子是小号假如全放开的话，不知道是哪一个 哦，全放开的话是那个降 B， 那个时候你的那个小号的那个全长是1.5米左右，148公分，啊。注意啊，声音这个东西蛮好玩的哦。你只要去看那个 orchestra 哦，那个人家表演前面的时候，不是都会调音阶吗？哦，就会请一个首席先吹一个音，然后大家跟着哦吹同样的音哈。然后吹完之后，其实我小时候一直认为那个是在装逼哈，但实际上不是啊，真的你要对于灵巧的耳朵来讲，你要是根据那个声音来去调整一下你的乐器，为什么？因为音数不是固定的，它会受到温度、湿度的影响。好，所以你要看当天的演出环境、演出状况，稍微把你的弦弄紧一点，或者是管子放长一点，好，你才能够吹出准确的音。不过基本上业余玩家应该都是在装逼而已啊，大概听不太出来了哈。所以，但是对职业演奏者来讲，那件事情是有意义的哈。好了，明天再扯这些故事啊 ，OK 啊。好，但你会看到哈，就是同样一根管子啊，你事实上不同的音，它的那个其实就是不同的共振模态啊。